What's up, YouTube, and welcome. You're watching Wolf King's Vids. I'm your host. Give it up. Okay, so to begin, we're going to be discussing the concept that is white genocide. You're probably curious as what I mean by that. Now, by that I mean I'm not saying individuals should take up arms and mow down every single white person that they see. We sort of deal with this with this concept of like white extremism. Now, just so we're clear, let's explore the concept of white genocide. What do we mean by that? Um, well, to begin, there was a particular video I've been meaning to look at, and who was it? Stephen Molyneux, right? Sort of brought up this concept of white genocide, and I'm just gonna play that video right now. Let's see. Okay. Playing it.
So we're going to have a couple of spoilers in here, but I think it's going to be worth your while. I did go and see the new Star Wars. I have a challenging relationship with Hollywood since the Me Too stuff came out, but this was the sort of last hurrah. I did want to see where one of the great charismatic childhood heroes of my youth ended up, which was Luke Skywalker. And I remember the first Star Wars movie that came out, antidote to the 70s nihilism over the place in art and in culture. It was something glorious and fun-filled and exuberant. There was actually something to fight for, and I thought that was quite delightful. Now I'm going to pull apart some narrative threads in the story, and they're going to be troubling to you, but that's good, right? Philosophy should not be easy or obvious. And some of you are going to respond and say, are you sure that's what the writers intended? And the only people who say that are people...
He's just going into the narrative, how it changed from movie to movie, but...
people who aren't themselves creative writers. I actually started out, I wrote my first short story when I was 6, wrote my first novel when I was 11, and have written a lot of fiction, about 30 plays, half a dozen novels, and so on, lots of poetry. And creativity, you're in a constant state of wrestling with it. If you dominate the life of the story with your intended purpose, then it ends up kind of wooden and lifeless. It merely flower of its own accord. Be wrong, not the one in the Matrix, but the Oracle had said that Socrates was the wisest man, and Socrates said, well, I don't believe that, I barely know anything. And in order to find out what the Oracle meant, Socrates went and talked about philosophy and thoughts and reason and evidence and knowledge and virtue and all of that. So just because the writers intend or don't intend something doesn't particularly matter. What matters is, this is true of whites as a whole, are seeing the life expectancy.
Okay, here we go.
Of course, the men going their own way movement, or the MGTOW possibilities and his own life. Okay? On an event like where the character went. And I think I can explain to you, Mark, exactly why that is. By the way, good job on Corvette Summer. That was a fun film. So after reading Rian Johnson's script for The Last Jedi, Mark Hamill said, quote, I at one point had to say to Ryan, I pretty much fundamentally disagree with every choice you've made for this. Now, again, spoilers away, but let's get into it. So Luke Skywalker,
this the part.
Skywalker has checked out of society. Huh. Isn't that interesting? He's a white male who's checked out of society. And we see this all over the place with white males, right? I mean, that they're not happy. Neither is Luke Skywalker happy. He's got this bitter, grizzled, half-homeless kind of determination to survive another day, but for no particular purpose. No extinguishing of his own possibilities and his own life. Destined to die on an abandoned, desolate rock in the middle of nowhere, no one even to bury his body. Right? They're heavily in debt from terrible educations. They're living at home There are endless diversity mandates in society, which means it's very, very hard for a white male to get a job. And I have to go into entrepreneurship, which has its ups and downs, of course. And there are jobs openly saying you basically, if you're a white male, you have no chance of getting this job. There is, of course, the men going their own way movement, or the MGTOW movement, where men are eschewing relations with women for fear of being preyed upon by a state that favors females from vastly in the court system, family court system in particular. Massive amounts of unemployment. There is, of course, the opioid crisis that is striking white males particularly hard. And white males, for the first time in centuries, are seeing, and this is true of whites as a whole, are seeing the life expectancy decline. Suicide, drug addiction, and so on are striking white males extraordinarily hard, which is not surprising since white males are the recipient of an enormous, virtually bottomless vat.
Okay, I think that's enough. Yeah, he sort of helped shape the narrative. Yeah, there's this idea that white people, specifically white males, are disenfranchised. A lot of them are oppressed. A lot of them are humiliated, and they lack power in mainstream society. That's due to this sort of conspiracy by rich elites, some Jewish working in this conglomerate with minorities, just keep the white men down. And it's this mindset that this whole notion of the alt-right and to a degree also the white extremist attacks we've seen in the last few years, such as the one I'm going to show to you now. Okay. All right. So most of America's terrorists are white and not Muslim. It's a real problem. When it comes to domestic terrorism in America, the numbers don't lie. Far-right extremists are behind far more plots, and attacks than Islamist extremists. There are almost twice as many terrorist incidents by right-wing extremists as by Islamic extremists in the United States from 2008 to 2016, according to a new report from the Nations Institute's Investigative Fund and the Center Investigative Reportings reveal. Looking at both plots and attacks carried out, the group tracked 201 terrorist incidents on U.S. soil from January 2008 to the end of 2016. The database shows 115 cases by right-wing extremists, from militias to sovereign citizens, compared to 63 cases by Islamic extremists. Incidents from left-wing extremists, which include eco-terrorists and animals' rights militants, were comparatively 19 incidents. And there's also the ones that have managed to be done. There's also another report I want to show right now. Let's see. 1 second. Right. I had it up earlier, but it got removed somehow. I don't know why. Okay, there we go. And there have at least been 77 murders as a result of white supremacist attacks. Right in this report right here. Screen sharing. All right, and this is going all the way back to the Oklahoma City bombing. From Charlottesville, a tally kept by the Sovereign Poverty Law Center indicates the murder of law enforcement officials and innocent civilians by race-obsessive, anti-government and other believers in white fringe movements have been depressingly common in the 2 decades since Timothy McVeigh's attack. Below, there's a list taken from SBLC's records confirmed by outside news accounts and supplemented with additional research is a list of 37 deadly attacks since Oklahoma City, comprising a total of 77 victims carried out or believed to have been carried out by white extremists. This is, this is pretty disturbing. This, I mean, this needs to be dealt with because it's happening on domestic soil. And it's rivaling even that of Islamic extremists, which notion of the concept of terrorism just being with it also must be dealt with on the home soil as well. Now, there are a lot of people that say that because I'm supporting white genocide, I am being bigoted or prejudiced, or some might even say racist. And I disagree like 100% because it's like my issue with Islam. I don't think that individuals that follow the Islamic faith, every single one of those people are bad or horrible or deserve to be purged from society. There are some that are very hardworking and do want to live in this world alongside other people. It just so happens that there is a fringe part of it that's batshit insane, that instill their values that on the rest of the world, that think they're doing the right thing, but really their methods and their tactics of dispensing their view and their influence are in fact toxic to civilization, and for the good of that civilization, purging it is what's for the best. So if having more mixed children and having different people come from different countries is what's going to end this group, then I say we do that. Let's endorse white genocide. So it's demonstrated. Well, not demonstrated. I've seen that they've been also trying to gate some kind of cyber attack in Silicon Valley. I looked that up right now. Okay. So honestly, I think it's about time that we see the alt-right in the death rows, because I don't mind people that supremacists and just shit posting meme. I don't mind that, but I think ultimately, what fruits that they bear, I think it's ultimately going to be poisonous for society. It's just going to drag us in the dirt with them, and that's honestly not what Western civilization is founded on. So it's for the best to be gotten rid of. Let me just. Yeah, far-right conservatives are escalating their campaign against Silicon Valley with a new series of volleys against social media, flow of information in the digital age. Yeah, they're being purged online, and they're
share your concerns about terrorism.
Okay. Okay, tech companies that deny the alt-right access to their services can cause the movement serious harm. That is true. They do exist on there. Okay, yeah, Twitter accused Project Veritas of using deceptive and underhanded tactics and selectively edited predetermined narrative. Okay. Disputed shadow bans. Yeah, they're sort of enwrapped in some sort of like political dispute against them talking. I mean, that's more on their side. I mean, that's like a private company, so that's them. But yeah, the point is like this. These activities are sort of more or less what is promoting the end of society rather than the progression. And it's only when we remove this aspect, the better it'll be for the future. So that being said, I say we purge this white supremacy. So, will you promote white genocide with me? I hope you will. All right. This has been Wolf King. Peace out. If you like this video, you know what to do. Stop out there to know. And hail Satan.